Tessa Morgan was not falling. That was what made Gabriel Moretti's hands around her waist increasingly difficult to explain. The ladder had shifted once. Only once. A tiny scrape of aluminum against polished wood, as Tessa stretched toward the heavy curtain beside the window. Gabriel had crossed the room immediately, fast enough to catch her, strong enough to steady both Tessa and the ladder without effort. Perfectly reasonable. For approximately 3 seconds. 8 seconds later, his hands were still there. Tessa stood 2 steps above him, one hand gripping the curtain fabric, the other braced against the wall. Gabriel looked up, she looked down, and suddenly the enormous Moretti sitting room became suspiciously quiet. The afternoon sunlight coming through the tall windows caught the side of Tessa's face. Her dark hair was pinned loosely at the back of her head, with curls already escaping around her cheeks because she had spent most of the day climbing ladders, adjusting fabric, and arguing with a curtain rod that had developed personal ambitions. Gabriel's attention was no longer on the curtain rod. That was unfortunate, because Tessa Morgan was his grandmother's interior designer. Nothing more. At least, that was the lie Gabriel had been maintaining with impressive discipline for several weeks. Across the room, Evelyn Moretti sat in an elegant chair with a book open across her lap. She had been on the same page for nearly 4 minutes, not because the book was complicated, because her grandson had just placed both hands around Tessa's curvy waist and apparently forgotten how gravity worked. Evelyn slowly lowered the book. Tessa glanced toward Gabriel's hands, then back at his face. The ladder stopped moving. Gabriel's expression remained maddeningly calm. I know. Tessa waited. So did Evelyn. Gabriel did not release her. Interesting. Tessa's eyebrow lifted. Are you still protecting me from gravity? Gabriel's eyes narrowed slightly. Do you normally argue while standing on ladders? Only when someone is holding me hostage on one. That did it. The corner of Evelyn's mouth twitched. Gabriel released Tessa, slowly. A little too slowly. Tessa stepped down. Gabriel took one measured step back and adjusted the cuff of his black shirt, as though absolutely nothing unusual had occurred. Tessa smoothed her fitted brown top. Evelyn raised her book again. Nobody mentioned that she was holding it upside down. For several seconds, the only sound came from the workers packing equipment in the hallway. Then Tessa glanced around the room. Finished. Completely finished. The curtains had been installed. The art was hung. The antique chair had been reupholstered. The shelves were arranged. Evelyn's photographs stood exactly where she wanted them. There was nothing left to do. Which was why Tessa's sample books were already packed beside the door. Her contractors were leaving. Her final invoice was inside her handbag. Today was supposed to be the end. Not of Gabriel and Tessa. There was technically nothing between Gabriel and Tessa to end. That was another lie. But professionally, this was supposed to be her last afternoon at the Moretti mansion. The original contract had been for one room, Evelyn's sitting room. Then came the library, then the breakfast room, then the upstairs lounge, then a guest suite, then a hallway which, according to Gabriel, possessed poor visual continuity. Tessa had been an interior designer for almost 9 years. Until Gabriel Moretti, she had never met a hallway suffering from an identity crisis. Yet somehow, every time she finished one project, another room inside the enormous mansion developed a mysterious problem. Tessa picked up her handbag. Gabriel watched. He should have felt relieved. The mansion had been invaded for weeks. Workers, paint samples, furniture deliveries. Tessa's music, Tessa's coffee, Tessa herself. His schedule could finally return to normal. His house could return to quiet. His study could stop containing fabric samples. His grandmother could stop looking at him as though she knew something he did not. Everything could return to normal. Gabriel discovered, with immediate irritation, that normal suddenly sounded terrible. Tessa turned toward Evelyn. I'll send the final photographs tonight. Evelyn smiled. And you'll visit. That sounds less like a request. At 81, I've earned efficiency. Tessa laughed. Gabriel's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. That laugh, he had begun recognizing it from other rooms, from hallways, from upstairs. Sometimes he heard it before he saw her, and found himself walking toward it without making a conscious decision. Ridiculous. Tessa reached for the handle of her sample case. Gabriel spoke. "There is another room." Silence. Evelyn closed her eyes. Very briefly. A woman her age had seen wars, funerals, financial disasters, and 3 generations of Moretti men making terrible romantic decisions. Yet somehow, this was embarrassing, even for her. Tessa slowly released the sample case. "Another room." Gabriel nodded. "The West Gallery." She stared at him. The West Gallery. Tessa had walked through it that morning. Perfect hardwood floor. Museum-quality lighting. 3 large paintings. 2 antique consoles. Not one cracked surface. Not one faded curtain. Not one chair silently begging for rescue. What is wrong with the West Gallery? Gabriel Moretti went completely still. This was a man who ran an organization powerful enough that half the city preferred saying his name carefully. Men arrived at his office prepared with lawyers. Politicians returned his calls. Business rivals watched their language when he entered restaurants. But apparently, one curvy interior designer asking him what was wrong with a perfectly functional gallery could destroy his entire strategic ability. The lighting. Tessa stared. The lighting. Yes. What about it? Gabriel looked toward the window. That was never a promising sign. Evelyn pressed her lips together. Tessa folded her arms. Gabriel had approximately 12 seconds to invent a convincing lighting emergency. He failed. "It feels cold." Something about the answer changed the room. Because for once, Gabriel had accidentally told the truth. Not about the lighting, about the mansion. For years, the Moretti estate had been immaculate, beautiful, secure, expensive, and cold enough emotionally to qualify as another season. Then Tessa Morgan had arrived. She moved furniture, opened curtains, placed photographs back on walls, played music while she worked, left coffee cups where they did not belong, filled empty rooms with color, filled his grandmother's days with plans, filled Gabriel's attention with a woman he had absolutely no intention of needing. Now the idea of those rooms remaining after Tessa disappeared from them felt unexpectedly unbearable. Tessa studied him. Something in her expression softened, not enough to save him. The West Gallery's lighting was installed 18 months ago. Gabriel's gaze returned to hers. "You remember?" "I remember, because you told me it cost more than my car." Evelyn turned her face toward the window. Her shoulders moved once. Gabriel knew she was laughing. Tessa did too. He was surrounded by traitors. Finally, Tessa picked up her bag again. "I'll look at the gallery." Gabriel's expression did not change, but the tension left his shoulders. Evelyn saw it. Of course she did. Tessa started toward the door, then stopped beside Gabriel. She looked up at him, close enough that only he heard her. "If the lighting turns out to be perfectly fine," Gabriel waited. "I'm charging you for emotional damages." Then she walked away. Gabriel watched her go. Evelyn waited until Tessa disappeared down the hall, then turned a page in her book. "You're becoming obvious." Gabriel looked at his grandmother. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Of course not." Evelyn returned to her book. "That must be why you've renovated half the house." Gabriel said nothing, because there were moments when silence protected a man. This was not one of them. Evelyn smiled. 4 weeks earlier, Gabriel Moretti had hired Tessa Morgan to renovate one room for his lonely grandmother. He had no idea that before the month was over, he would be walking through his own mansion, searching for rooms that did not need fixing, simply because every finished room brought Tessa one step closer to leaving. And Gabriel Moretti, the man who feared almost nothing, was beginning to discover that goodbye could be considerably more dangerous than any enemy he had ever faced. Before Tessa Morgan arrived, nothing inside the Moretti mansion moved unless someone had been paid to move it. Furniture remained exactly where decorators had positioned it years earlier. Paintings hung perfectly level. Books existed mostly because libraries were apparently expected to contain them. Flowers appeared twice a week, according to a schedule maintained by the household staff. Even the decorative fruit looked disciplined. The house was enormous. Old Italian stone outside, dark wood inside. Long corridors lined with expensive art. There were enough bedrooms to accommodate a minor government. Yet only 2 Morettis actually lived there, Gabriel and his grandmother, Evelyn. Gabriel believed the mansion was elegant. Evelyn described it differently. Depressing. Gabriel looked up from the document in his hand. They were having breakfast at opposite ends of a table designed for 14. Evelyn sat in black silk, with a cup of tea beside her, and the expression of a woman preparing to become inconvenient. Gabriel recognized the expression. He had inherited his stubbornness from somewhere. What is depressing? This house. Gabriel glanced around. Sunlight crossed polished wood. Fresh flowers stood near the windows. Nothing appeared to be actively suffering. The house is fine. That is exactly what someone says immediately before a house becomes a mausoleum. Gabriel returned to his document. Dramatic. I married an Italian man. Gabriel. Drama is cultural inheritance. That almost made him smile. Almost. Evelyn noticed anyway. She had raised him for large portions of his childhood. There were very few expressions Gabriel could hide from her. For the previous year, Evelyn had complained increasingly about the mansion. At first, Gabriel assumed she was bored, so he arranged more outings. A driver, lunches with friends, concert tickets, a private club membership she used once and described as full of women who wore too much perfume and asked inappropriate questions. Then, she began spending more time upstairs. Dinner in her sitting room, tea alone, reading beside the window. Gabriel noticed. Naturally, he approached the problem like a man accustomed to controlling outcomes. New television. Rejected. New massage chair. Insultingly rejected. A personal assistant. Evelyn threatened to fire the woman before she arrived. Finally, one morning she told him the truth. Her sitting room made her sad. Not because it was ugly, because it no longer felt like hers. Years earlier, after Gabriel's grandfather Alessandro died, Evelyn had removed photographs. Then Gabriel's mother Elena died. More photographs disappeared. Rooms were redesigned. Colors became neutral. Everything that carried too many memories slowly vanished into storage. At the time, Gabriel considered that mercy. Now Evelyn looked around at a perfectly tasteful room and saw nothing of the life she'd actually lived. I want it changed. Gabriel put down the document. Fine. Evelyn narrowed her eyes. You have no idea what that means. We hire someone. That was Gabriel's answer to most household problems. Hire competence. Set terms. Review results. Done. Marco DeSantis produced 6 interior design portfolios by that afternoon. Marco had worked with Gabriel for 12 years. He had negotiated property acquisitions, organized security across multiple states, handled emergencies at 3 in the morning, and once arranged the relocation of an entire Moretti operation in less than 48 hours. Interior designers were new. He placed the portfolios on Gabriel's desk. This is everything. Gabriel opened the first. Modern, cold, expensive. He opened another. More of the same. Then Evelyn entered without knocking. Marco stepped aside. Gabriel's office might technically belong to him. Evelyn did not acknowledge borders inside buildings financed by family money. She picked up one portfolio, flipped through it, put it down. Another. Rejected. A third. Then she stopped. The name on the cover read, Tessa Morgan. The work was different. Still luxurious, but warm. A dining room with mismatched family photographs, arranged beautifully along one wall. A library with deep chairs and books, stacked naturally rather than according to height. A kitchen, where copper pans were visible instead of hidden. A bedroom with color. Rooms that looked expensive, but not afraid of fingerprints. Evelyn pointed. Her. Gabriel glanced at the portfolio. You haven't met her. I don't need to. You rejected a designer because his chair looked arrogant. It did. Marco looked toward the window. He had learned years ago that neutral objects were useful during Moretti family conversations. Gabriel sighed. Fine. Tessa Morgan arrived 2 days later. Gabriel happened to be in the foyer when the front door opened. That was his first mistake. His second was looking up. Tessa entered, carrying 2 large sample bags, a tube of rolled drawings, and an expression that suggested she was attempting to memorize everything simultaneously. She wore dark jeans, ankle boots, and a fitted cream blouse beneath a camel-colored coat. Curvy, very curvy, Gabriel noticed, then immediately disliked the fact that he had noticed. She was not delicate, not tiny. There was nothing apologetic about the way she occupied space. Her body was soft in all the places Gabriel's attention had no professional reason to investigate. He forced his eyes back to her face. Dark hair, brown eyes, full mouth. She was beautiful. Inconveniently. Tessa stopped when she saw him. She knew who he was. That was obvious. Most people experienced a tiny adjustment when they met Gabriel Moretti. Shoulders tightening, voice changing, eyes becoming careful. Tessa's happened for perhaps half a second. Then she looked past him toward the enormous entrance hall. Her expression changed again. Gabriel expected admiration. Instead, she frowned at his walls. Interesting. Ms. Morgan. Her attention returned. Mr. Moretti. He held out a hand. She took it. Firm grip, warm fingers, no hesitation. Then one of her sample bags slipped from her shoulder. Gabriel caught it before it hit the floor. Tessa looked down, then at him. Fast. Gabriel handed it back. You were dropping it. I prefer testing reflexes. Marco, standing near the staircase, looked away. Tessa saw him. Gabriel did too. The woman had been inside his house less than 2 minutes, and Marco was already enjoying himself. Unacceptable. Evelyn appeared at the top of the staircase. Everything changed. Tessa's face immediately warmed. Evelyn descended slowly, one hand on the railing. Gabriel moved toward her. She waved him away. I've survived stairs since before you were born. Gabriel ignored her and remained close anyway. Tessa noticed another small detail. They went upstairs. Evelyn's sitting room was large, polished, and emotionally dead. Heavy cream curtains. Beige sofa, 2 formal chairs, 1 landscape painting, selected by a decorator because its colors matched the rug. Tessa walked through slowly. She touched fabric, opened curtains, examined the windows, looked at the empty walls. Gabriel waited for recommendations. Paint, furniture, lighting. Instead, Tessa turned toward Evelyn. What do you miss? Gabriel frowned. Evelyn went still. Tessa clarified. Not, what do you dislike about the room? What used to be here that you miss? The older woman's eyes moved toward the window. For the first time since Tessa arrived, Evelyn's humor disappeared. My husband's chair. Gabriel looked at her. Evelyn continued. It had been a dark green leather chair. Alessandro sat there every morning. He drank espresso, read 3 newspapers, complained about 2, then pretended he wasn't listening when Evelyn talked from across the room. There had been family photographs on the opposite wall, a little radio, blue curtains years ago, flowers, always flowers. Alessandro brought them home even when they argued, especially when they argued. Tessa listened. No clipboard, no interrupting. Gabriel watched her. Then Evelyn said something quieter. I suppose after he died, I thought if I changed everything, perhaps I would stop looking for him. Tessa's expression softened. Did it work? Evelyn smiled sadly. No. Gabriel felt something uncomfortable move beneath his ribs. He looked away. Tessa didn't. She walked toward the wall. I don't think this room needs to become what it was. Evelyn listened, but maybe it should stop pretending none of it happened. That sentence stayed with Gabriel long after the consultation ended. Work began 3 days later. Gabriel regretted everything by noon. Tessa arrived with contractors. Then fabric samples. Then paint cards. Then a small speaker. Music appeared. Furniture moved. A side table Gabriel had seen in the same place for 7 years suddenly migrated 6 feet. He stopped in the doorway. Why is that there? Tessa looked over her shoulder. Because it works there. It worked over there. No, it existed over there. Gabriel stared. She returned to measuring the wall. Evelyn sat near the window, pretending not to enjoy this. The battle became worse when the pillows arrived. Gabriel counted 7. Tessa claimed there were 5. One was technically a lumbar cushion. Gabriel rejected this distinction. A sofa should not require excavation before sitting. Tessa held up one pillow. Look at this. I am. Texture. It is cloth. Evelyn covered her mouth with her teacup. Tessa looked at Gabriel with narrowed eyes. You have strong feelings about cushions. I have strong feelings about unnecessary objects. No, that's going to make decorating difficult. I was not aware we were decorating my room. Tessa smiled. Not yet. Gabriel paused. Something about that answer irritated him and interested him. That became their rhythm. Tessa changed something. Gabriel questioned it. She explained. Sometimes he disagreed. Sometimes she won. Frequently he pretended she had not. But the room changed. So did Evelyn. Tessa found the old green chair in storage. The leather was cracked. One arm damaged. Instead of replacing it, she had it restored. She found photographs packed inside archival boxes. Not all. Only the ones Evelyn chose. One showed Alessandro and Evelyn on a boat in Sicily. Another showed Elena holding a baby Gabriel. Another showed Gabriel at 12 with wet hair, missing one front tooth, and smiling like somebody who had not yet learned to hide anything. Tessa held that one longer. Gabriel entered. She looked at him, then at the photograph, then back. No, Tessa smiled. You haven't even heard the question. I know the question. You were adorable. Gabriel took the photograph from her. I was a child. An adorable child. Evelyn called from behind them. There are better ones. Gabriel turned. Grandmother. Tessa's eyes brightened. How much better? Much. Gabriel placed the photograph face down. Tessa laughed. Real laughter. Uncontrolled. Gabriel should have been annoyed. Instead, he found himself watching her. That was the first moment he became genuinely concerned. The sitting room took 8 days. On the final afternoon, Evelyn waited outside while Tessa made the last adjustments. Then the doors opened. Sunlight filled the room. The heavy curtains were gone. The restored green chair sat beside the window. Books Evelyn actually read lined the shelves. Family photographs returned to the walls. There were flowers, blue fabric, warm wood, not a reconstruction, not a museum, something new, built around what mattered before. Evelyn stepped inside, stopped. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then she walked to Alessandro's chair, touched the leather, sat down. Her hand moved toward the photograph beside it. Gabriel saw tears gather in her eyes. Tessa quietly stepped backward, giving her space. Evelyn looked toward Gabriel. Come here. He did. She took his hand. For one moment, Gabriel was not a Mafia boss, not the Moretti patriarch, not the man everyone expected to have answers. He was simply someone's grandson, standing inside a room that remembered his family. Tessa looked away. That mattered to him. She knew when not to watch. Later, after Evelyn's friends arrived unexpectedly for tea, and the sitting room filled with conversation, Gabriel found Tessa packing samples in the hallway. Thank you. She looked up. The words sounded almost unnatural coming from him. Not because Gabriel lacked manners, because gratitude meant admitting something had mattered. Tessa smiled. She'll use it now. Gabriel looked toward the open door. Evelyn was laughing. Yes. Tessa picked up the sample case. Well, I guess that's me finished. There it was. That strange sensation again. A room closing somewhere Gabriel could not identify. He watched her walk toward the staircase. Then Evelyn's voice came from behind them. Tessa! She turned. Evelyn stood in the doorway. The library is terrible. Gabriel slowly looked at his grandmother. The library had been professionally renovated 4 years earlier. Tessa's eyebrows rose. What is wrong with it? Evelyn considered. Everything. Gabriel knew that expression. She was lying. Badly. Tessa glanced between them, then smiled. Apparently, she was staying. Gabriel told himself the unexpected relief in his chest was because Evelyn seemed happy. At that stage, the lie was still almost believable. The library renovation should have been easier. It wasn't. Partly because Evelyn did not actually hate the library. She disliked the chairs. One lamp, and perhaps a rug. That was approximately 20% of a renovation. Evelyn requested 100. Tessa suspected something by the second day. Gabriel suspected something by the second hour. He simply chose not to stop it. That should have warned him. The library sat along the south side of the mansion. Dark walnut shelves climbed nearly to the ceiling. Tall windows overlooked the garden. Everything was handsome. Everything was serious. Everything looked like reading should involve a legal obligation. Tessa wanted softer lighting, a pair of deep green chairs, a lower table, a corner where Evelyn could sit with friends. Gabriel became involved immediately. This chair is too large. Tessa looked at him. You're enormous. Gabriel's eyebrows lifted. Evelyn choked delicately into her tea. Tessa continued before common sense could intervene. Scale matters. A tiny chair in this room would look ridiculous. Gabriel stared at her. There were men who had known him for 20 years and still avoided describing his physical dimensions directly. Tessa Morgan had known him 11 days. Apparently fear had missed an appointment. He looked at the chair again. It's still too large. Sit in it. No. Then your review is incomplete. Gabriel sat. Tessa watched. The chair fit him perfectly. She folded her arms. Gabriel remained seated. Evelyn looked from one to the other. Well? Gabriel stood. Acceptable. Tessa smiled. Another victory. A small one. She collected them. Over the next week, Gabriel began appearing in the library, far more than his participation required. At first he claimed he was checking progress. Then he discovered opinions. Many opinions. Lighting temperature, shelf height, fabric durability. Tessa tolerated this for 2 days. On the third, Gabriel objected to the angle of a reading lamp. She stopped, slowly turned. You know what lumens are? Gabriel looked up from his phone. Yes. You knew the wall color would change under Western light. Silence. You corrected the scale on my floor plan yesterday. Gabriel's expression remained blank. Tessa narrowed her eyes. Have you studied design? No. Architecture? Nothing. There. Tessa smiled. Gabriel looked mildly betrayed by his own silence. Evelyn, sitting at the end of the room, lowered her glasses. Tessa, you found one of his secrets. Gabriel looked toward her. Grandmother. What? You studied architecture. For 2 years. Tessa stared. Gabriel turned away. Suddenly his maddening opinions made sense. He had an eye. A good one. Not trained enough to replace professional expertise, but trained enough to become irritating. Tessa became delighted. You've spent 2 weeks pretending you hate this. I don't hate design. You complained about 5 cushions. Cushions are not architecture. Interesting. Strong distinction. Gabriel walked away. Tessa grinned after him. Evelyn watched her grandson leave, then looked at Tessa. He loved it once. Tessa's smile faded slightly. Architecture. Before Gabriel became Gabriel Moretti. Before tailored suits. Before whispered meetings. before men with guns stood at every entrance. Evelyn didn't explain more. She didn't need to. Tessa had learned something important. There was a version of Gabriel that existed before obligation became his entire identity. From then on, she began asking for his opinion deliberately. At first, Gabriel resisted. Then, one evening, she spread 3 floor plans across the library table. Which? Gabriel glanced. The second. Why? The circulation is better. She smiled. What? Nothing. He knew that smile. You're enjoying this. Maybe. Gabriel looked at the plans again. The table is wrong. Tessa leaned closer. How? Their shoulders touched. Neither moved. He pointed. Tessa followed his hand. For a moment, design disappeared. She became aware of his arm beside hers, the heat of him, his cologne. Gabriel turned his head slightly. They were close, too close for people discussing furniture. Tessa's pulse changed. Gabriel noticed. Then Evelyn entered. Both moved apart. The woman looked between them, then at the floor plans. Have I interrupted geometry? Tessa bit back a laugh. Gabriel rolled the plans up. Yes, Evelyn smiled. The mansion changed as the library did. Tessa began leaving traces. A pencil on the breakfast table, measuring tape beside a window, a half-empty coffee cup near Gabriel's study. Fabric books stacked temporarily against walls. Music played while workers were inside. The staff relaxed around her. She knew their names, asked opinions, thanked people. Gabriel noticed that too. He noticed almost everything about Tessa by then. Her coffee contained cinnamon. She forgot lunch whenever she was concentrating. She always tucked one curl behind her ear when she read measurements. She hummed when she liked a room, went completely silent when she didn't. She wore perfume that reminded him faintly of vanilla and cedar. None of this information served any strategic purpose. His brain stored it anyway. The first lunch he sent her was practical. She had skipped breakfast, then lunch. At 3:30, Gabriel walked through the library and saw an untouched coffee beside her. He told a housekeeper to bring food. Tessa assumed Evelyn had done it. Evelyn recognized Gabriel's choice of sandwich immediately. She said nothing. The next day, Tessa forgot lunch again. Another plate appeared, then another. By the 4th occurrence, she found Gabriel in his study. You've been feeding me. He looked up. That sounds dramatic. I asked Evelyn. Gabriel returned to the document. She talks too much. Tessa leaned against the doorframe. You could have simply told me. You would have said you weren't hungry. She paused, because that was exactly what she would have said. Gabriel looked up. Caught. Tessa smiled. Thank you. He nodded once. She left. Gabriel stared at the doorway longer than necessary. Then came the cushion. Tessa had several samples spread across Gabriel's study while comparing colors from adjacent rooms. One deep, rust-colored cushion ended up on his black leather sofa. Gabriel saw it, picked it up, placed it outside the door. Tessa returned, saw the cushion, put it back. The following morning, Gabriel removed it again. Tessa replaced it. No discussion, no declaration of war, just 2 deeply stubborn adults fighting over 12 inches of fabric. On day 4, Tessa entered Gabriel's study. The cushion was still there. Gabriel was reading on the opposite end of the sofa. She stopped. His eyes remained on the page. Tessa walked over, adjusted the cushion. Gabriel finally looked at her. Don't. I haven't said anything. You're thinking loudly. Tessa smiled. He looked back at the book. When he stood later, he automatically straightened the cushion. Tessa witnessed it. Gabriel witnessed Tessa witnessing it. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then she left before she laughed in his face. Gabriel stared at the cushion. He had lost. The library finished beautifully. Evelyn began using it immediately. That should have ended the project. Instead, she entered breakfast the following morning and announced the breakfast room was too dark. Tessa looked toward the enormous windows. 3, each nearly 8 feet tall. Sunlight practically attacked the room every morning. Evelyn drank tea. Gabriel looked at her. You're inventing problems. I am expressing dissatisfaction. With sunlight, among other things. Tessa looked between them. The grandmother was lying. Gabriel knew. And somehow, he agreed anyway. That surprised Tessa. The breakfast room became project number 3. Then something else happened. Gabriel started leaving work earlier. The first time, Marco assumed there had been a schedule change. The second time, he checked. No. The third time, Gabriel walked out of an unfinished meeting at 5:50 because Tessa had scheduled lighting samples for 6:30. Marco followed him into the hallway. We still have Ferraro waiting. Tomorrow. He flew in today. He can fly out tomorrow. Marco stared. Gabriel pressed the elevator button. Marco knew better than to smile. He had survived 12 years because of instincts like that. At the mansion, Tessa was standing barefoot on a drop cloth arguing with an electrician. Gabriel entered. She looked toward him. You're home. He disliked how much he enjoyed hearing that. Apparently, you normally appear after I'm gone. Apparently Tessa had noticed his schedule too. Gabriel removed his jacket. Problem? The fixture is 3 inches too low. The electrician defended himself. Gabriel looked. Tessa looked at Gabriel. He sighed. She is right. The electrician adjusted it. Tessa smiled. Teamwork. Dangerous. Then Adrian Cole arrived. Adrian was Tessa's contractor. 32. Tall. Friendly. Good at his job. And, as far as Gabriel could determine within 90 seconds, irritating. Adrian entered carrying floor samples. Tessa smiled, then hugged him. Not intimately. Not long. Just 2 friends greeting each other. Gabriel stopped in the doorway. Marco arrived behind him. Stopped too, then considered leaving. Tessa introduced them. Adrian shook Gabriel's hand, confidently. That was acceptable. Then he called Tessa, Tess. Gabriel's opinion deteriorated. For the next 20 minutes, Gabriel became interested in every detail of Adrian's work. Installation date, material origin, warranty, subcontractors. Tessa gradually noticed. Adrian noticed eventually. Evelyn noticed before everyone. When Adrian finally left, Tessa stood at the island sorting samples. Gabriel examined his phone. Is every contractor questioned like that? Gabriel looked up. He is working in my house. He has been working here for 2 weeks. He was late. 6 minutes. Still late. Tessa's mouth twitched. Gabriel recognized danger. What? Nothing. Say it. She folded the sample book. You're jealous. Gabriel stared at her. Evelyn suddenly found breakfast fascinating. No. Tessa nodded. Of course. He's your contractor. Yes. That's all. Yes. Gabriel realized too late that he had asked a question while pretending not to care. Tessa's smile widened. She walked away. Evelyn waited, then quietly said, subtle. Gabriel turned toward his grandmother. She drank tea. Traitors everywhere. The breakfast room finished Friday. Tessa began packing. Evelyn had not yet invented another problem. Gabriel watched from the doorway. For the first time, the possibility became real. Tessa would leave. The sample books would disappear. No music. No arguments. No cinnamon coffee. No woman leaning into his study to ask whether a lamp offended him personally. He disliked the thought immediately. So Gabriel Moretti did what powerful men had done for centuries when faced with emotional problems they refused to identify. He found a logistical one. The upstairs lounge. Tessa turned. What about it? Gabriel had not planned this far. The layout. Evelyn looked at him. Gabriel looked at Evelyn. And that was the moment she knew. She was no longer creating reasons for Tessa to stay. Her grandson had begun doing it himself. The upstairs lounge did not need renovating. Not really. The sofa was 4 years old. The rug was fine. The curtains were fine. Everything was fine. Tessa discovered this within 9 minutes. Gabriel stood near the fireplace while she examined the room. She walked slowly, opened a curtain, sat in one chair, moved a table 2 inches, then turned. "What exactly bothers you?" Gabriel folded his arms. "It doesn't flow." Tessa stared. He had used her own language against her. "That sounds suspicious." "Why?" "Because a month ago you thought texture was a conspiracy invented by cushions." Gabriel ignored that. Tessa stepped closer. "What do you want from this room?" Dangerous question. Not because of the room, because Gabriel suddenly had a very clear answer. "You. Here. Another week." He looked away. Better use of space. Tessa knew something was wrong with that answer, but she accepted the project. Not because Gabriel was convincing, because she was beginning to enjoy being there too. The lounge renovation brought them into closer contact. Gabriel started sketching again. Accidentally. At least that was how it began. Tessa was reviewing a difficult corner near the windows. She complained that nothing looked right. Gabriel picked up a pencil. "Move this wall visually." He drew a line. Then another. Tessa watched his hand. Confident. Precise. He understood, proportion instinctively. Within 2 minutes, he had produced a cleaner solution than the original plan. Tessa stared. Gabriel noticed. "What? You're good." He put down the pencil. "I remember some things." "Some?" He moved away. Tessa looked at the sketch. There was more behind this than 2 forgotten years of architecture school. She knew it. Days later, she found proof. Gabriel's study door was open. She entered looking for a folder he had borrowed. A black sketchbook sat on the desk. Open. She wasn't snooping. At least, not initially. A drawing caught her attention. A conservatory, tall windows, iron framing, plants. A reading chair. Beautiful. Detailed enough to show hours of work. Tessa turned the page. Another drawing. The same room. Different angle. Then a date. 15 years earlier. She heard Gabriel behind her. "Tessa!" She turned. The tone wasn't angry. Worse. Guarded. She immediately stepped away. "I'm sorry. I came for the floor plan." Gabriel's eyes went toward the sketchbook. Tessa closed it carefully. "I didn't mean to invade anything." He entered, took the book. For a moment, she thought he would put it away. Instead, Gabriel looked at the old drawing. "That room belongs to my mother." Belonged. Past tense. Tessa waited. Gabriel sat on the edge of his desk. Elena Moretti had loved the conservatory. She grew herbs there, read there, painted terribly there. Evelyn insisted Elena's paintings were beautiful. Gabriel disagreed. He had spent afternoons beside his mother drawing buildings while she painted plants. Elena was the one who encouraged architecture school. Gabriel had planned to leave Chicago eventually, work in Europe, design hotels, restore old buildings. Then his father died violently. The organization fractured, enemies circled. Gabriel came home. At 23, he inherited responsibilities nobody else could safely carry. He told himself architecture could wait. It never returned. Then Elena became ill several years later. After she died, Gabriel locked the conservatory. Not literally at first. Then, eventually, yes. The room remained largely untouched. Tessa looked toward the sketchbook. "Do you ever go inside?" "No." "Why?" Gabriel's expression changed. "You ask many questions. You answer more than you think." That almost made him smile. Tessa softened. "Do you miss drawing?" "No. Too fast." She nodded. Terrible liar. Gabriel looked at her. Tessa picked up the floor plan she'd originally come for. "Don't worry. I won't tell anyone the terrifying Gabriel Moretti understands window proportions." His eyes narrowed. She headed toward the door. "Tessa." She turned. Gabriel looked down at the sketchbook, then back. "My mother would have liked you." The words surprised both of them. Tessa's expression changed. Warm, quiet. Then she left. Gabriel remained inside the study. For the first time in years, he opened the sketchbook again, instead of putting it away. The relationship shifted after that. Not dramatically. There was no declaration, No sudden romance. Just trust. Gabriel started staying while Tessa worked, sometimes in the same room, sometimes pretending he was there for another reason. Tessa no longer believed most of those reasons. One night, rain delayed her contractors. Tessa stayed late waiting for fabric. Gabriel returned from a meeting after 8. He found her sitting on the floor among samples eating crackers from a packet. He stopped. "That is dinner?" Tessa looked at the crackers. "Technically, several dinners if you're a bird." Gabriel disappeared. 20 minutes later, proper food arrived. They ate sitting on the floor. Gabriel without his jacket. Tessa with her shoes, abandoned somewhere near the sofa. The mansion was quiet. No Evelyn. No contractors. No Marco. Only them. Tessa told him about her career. She worked under Celeste Warren, one of Chicago's most successful luxury designers. Celeste was brilliant, polished, connected, and very good at taking Tessa's most interesting ideas and removing whatever made them interesting. Too much color, too personal, too feminine, too warm. Wealthy clients wanted timeless. Tessa had begun hating that word. Usually it meant beige. Gabriel listened. Why stay? Because dreams are less romantic when rent arrives. He understood. Tessa wanted her own studio. Not enormous, just hers. Projects with her name, her decisions, her mistakes. Gabriel's mind immediately began solving financing. He stopped himself. Something in her expression warned him. Instead, he asked, "What would you design if nobody could tell you no?" Tessa looked around his mansion. This. Gabriel followed her gaze. The room they were rebuilding. Warm, bold, alive. "You already are." The words landed deeper than he intended. Tessa looked at him. For the first time, Gabriel realized supporting someone did not necessarily mean removing the obstacle. Sometimes it meant reminding them they were already capable of crossing it. The moment remained between them. Then Tessa reached for a fabric sample. Gabriel reached too. Their hands touched. Neither pulled away. Her fingers were beneath his. His thumb moved slightly. Tessa's eyes lifted. Gabriel was already watching her. Everything slowed. There had been attraction from the beginning. Now it had somewhere to go. Gabriel leaned closer. Tessa did not move. Then a voice echoed from the hallway. "Tessa?" "Evelyn." Gabriel closed his eyes. Tessa bit her lip. "Your grandmother has timing. She has surveillance instincts." Evelyn entered, stopped, looked at both of them seated suspiciously close on the floor. Then at the fabric sample between their hands. "I see." Tessa moved her hand. Gabriel looked murderous. Evelyn smiled. "Carry on." She left. Tessa started laughing. Gabriel looked toward the ceiling. That almost kiss haunted both of them for 3 days. Then came the ladder. The lounge was almost complete. Tessa stood several feet above the floor, adjusting the curtain. Evelyn read nearby. Gabriel entered as the ladder shifted. He crossed the room instantly, caught Tessa around the waist. She steadied. His hands remained, and suddenly they were exactly where the cold open had found them. Tessa looking down, Gabriel looking up. Evelyn pretending her book remained interesting. The ladder stopped moving. "I know." Tessa's pulse jumped. He knew, yet his hands stayed. Gabriel's thumbs rested against the curve of her waist. He felt the warmth of her through the fabric. For once, his control became something he had to actively maintain. Tessa's gaze dropped to his mouth. Gabriel saw it. The room disappeared. Then Evelyn turned a page loudly. Gabriel released Tessa. She climbed down. Neither spoke. Not then. Later that evening, he walked her outside. Tessa's car waited near the front steps. The air smelled like rain. She turned. "The lounge will be done Friday." Gabriel nodded. "Are you going to invent another room?" He looked at her. Tessa smiled. Joking. Mostly. The guest suite could use work. She laughed. "You're unbelievable." Gabriel stepped closer. The laughter faded. Tessa's breath caught. He lifted one hand toward her cheek, stopped before touching. That restraint affected her more than confidence would have. Gabriel Moretti could order almost anything, control almost anyone inside his world, but he would not assume access to her. Tessa closed the final distance herself. Their lips met. Slowly, warm, careful for approximately 2 seconds. Then weeks of tension arrived all at once. Gabriel's hand settled around her waist. Tessa's fingers curled into the front of his shirt. He pulled her closer. Not enough to overwhelm. Enough to make intention impossible to misunderstand. The kiss deepened. Tessa felt him exhale against her mouth, as though something he'd been holding for weeks had finally escaped. When they separated, her forehead rested briefly against his. Gabriel's eyes remained closed. Tessa smiled. "What?" He opened them. "I've created a problem." "Another room? Worse," she laughed. Gabriel looked toward the mansion. "I may actually be running out." Tessa laughed harder. For once, Gabriel did too. Upstairs, Evelyn stood behind a curtain, watched them, smiled, then walked away. She had officially completed her part. Unfortunately for Gabriel, the trouble was only beginning. Once Gabriel kissed Tessa, pretending became considerably more difficult. He still attempted it. Gabriel Moretti had built an entire adult life on emotional restraint. One kiss was not going to destroy that. 3 kisses later, the situation deteriorated. They did not announce anything. There was nothing to announce. Tessa remained the designer. Gabriel remained the client. Except clients generally did not wait near staircases, simply because designers were leaving. Clients did not text at 11:30, asking whether one particular fabric was too warm, when both people knew the photograph attached contained Tessa's reflection in the mirror. Clients definitely did not kiss designers in half-finished guest rooms while pretending to discuss wall color. Evelyn noticed. Marco noticed. The household noticed. Gabriel and Tessa apparently believed they were subtle. They were not. One morning at breakfast, Evelyn watched Gabriel place Tessa's coffee beside the seat she usually occupied. Tessa had not arrived yet. Gabriel knew exactly how she took it. Cinnamon, little sugar, extra milk. Evelyn buttered toast. Gabriel sensed her eyes. What? Nothing. He disliked that word in this house. Tessa arrived, saw the coffee, looked at Gabriel, smiled. Evelyn waited until Tessa sat. Then asked, "Does he kiss as seriously as he conducts meetings?" Tessa inhaled coffee. Incorrectly. Gabriel went completely still. Marco, standing near the door, immediately left. Cowardly. Intelligent. Tessa coughed. Evelyn looked concerned. "Careful." Gabriel stared at his grandmother. "That was unnecessary. I am 81. I have limited time for unnecessary secrecy." Tessa's face turned bright red. Gabriel looked toward her. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. A real smile. Tessa saw it. Evelyn saw that. And suddenly, embarrassment became something warmer. After that, nobody pretended. Their romance grew in ordinary spaces. Gabriel found himself standing beside Tessa at paint stores, a deeply humiliating experience for his security detail. One Saturday, Tessa held 2 nearly identical cream swatches beneath bright lighting. "This one," Gabriel pointed left. She stared. "You looked for half a second." "The right one is too yellow." Tessa checked. He was right. She narrowed her eyes. "You're irritating. You hired my opinion." "No. Your grandmother hired me. Yet you keep asking." Tessa handed him another set. Gabriel took them. 3 men in black suits stood several feet away, pretending this was normal. It was not. At antique markets, Tessa bargained aggressively. Gabriel discovered this accidentally, when a dealer quoted her an inflated price for a side table. Tessa smiled sweetly, then dismantled the man's argument point by point until the price dropped 30%. Gabriel watched, impressed. Later, he told Marco she negotiated well. Marco looked at him. "I know that look. Gabriel's eyes narrowed. What look? Marco immediately reconsidered his courage. Nothing. Wise. There were evenings when Gabriel worked while Tessa designed beside him, her feet tucked beneath her on the sofa. Sketches spread everywhere, music low. Sometimes neither spoke for 20 minutes. Gabriel had never understood companionship that did not require conversation. Then Tessa happened. He began liking silence because she was inside it. That scared him. The mansion had changed too much, not visually. Emotionally, Gabriel now expected to hear her, expected to see her bag in the hallway, expected the rust-colored cushion on his sofa, expected another argument about walls. People became dangerous when expectation turned into dependence. Gabriel knew that better than most. His father had died. His mother had died. His grandfather had died. Every person who turned a building into home eventually gave that building the ability to hurt you. One night, Tessa fell asleep in the library while reviewing plans. Gabriel found her curled into one of the chairs. He stood there longer than necessary, then lifted the blanket from the back of the sofa, covered her. Tessa shifted, opened her eyes. Were you watching me sleep? No. You're standing over me. I was bringing the blanket. Very noble. Her sleepy smile did something uncomfortable to his chest. Gabriel sat on the edge of the table. Tessa watched him, then held out one hand. He took it. She pulled gently. Gabriel sat beside her. Tessa rested her head against his shoulder. No dialogue, no performance, just warmth. Gabriel looked toward the newly decorated room. Tessa had built this. Not the shelves. The feeling. That was when he knew. Not attraction. Not curiosity. Not convenience. Love. He loved her. The realization should have felt dramatic. Instead, it felt terrifyingly obvious, as though everyone else had been waiting for him to catch up. Unfortunately, the rest of the world was about to notice Tessa too. Celeste Warren visited the mansion the following week. Tessa had invited her because one of the Moretti rooms would be considered for the firm's annual portfolio. Celeste arrived polished from head to heel. Silver blonde hair, perfect suit, perfect posture, perfect smile. She greeted Gabriel with the careful confidence of someone accustomed to wealthy clients. Then she toured Tessa's work. The praise began generously. Beautiful, excellent use of texture, strong flow. Then came the little corrections. Too personal, too many photographs. The breakfast room could photograph better with fewer family objects. The library needed a cleaner visual story. Tessa's expression barely changed. Gabriel noticed everything. When Celeste suggested removing Evelyn's favorite framed photograph for the shoot, Gabriel spoke. No. Celeste looked toward him. It would only be temporary. No. Tessa tried not to smile. Celeste adjusted. The photograph stayed. Then she noticed the conservatory drawings visible in Gabriel's study. Her interest sharpened. A Moretti estate feature would be significant. Very significant. Gabriel made one thing clear. No publicity connected to his family beyond approved interior photographs. No names, no private information. Celeste agreed. Too easily. Tessa did not notice. Gabriel did. He had spent too long around people who wanted access. Celeste wanted more than design exposure. But for Tessa's sake, he said nothing until he had reason. Days later, the guest suite was finished. Tessa packed. Gabriel immediately suggested the west corridor. She stared at him. The corridor. Yes. Which part? The lighting. Tessa looked up. The lights glowed perfectly. Gabriel. What? Are you aware that most people simply ask someone on a date when they want to spend time with them? He stared. Evelyn, passing through, stopped. Tessa continued. Most people do not renovate square footage. Gabriel's jaw tightened. The corridor needs work. Tessa smiled. You're adorable when you're dishonest. Gabriel looked genuinely offended by the adjective. Evelyn walked away before she laughed. The corridor renovation lasted 4 days. Then his study. This one, Tessa took seriously. It was Gabriel's room. Not physically, emotionally. Dark wood, black leather, files. No family photographs, except the one Tessa had quietly returned from the sitting room collection. She placed his mother's photograph beside him, instead of deciding for him. Your choice. Gabriel looked at the frame. Young Elena Moretti, laughing. Gabriel beside her at 17. He stared for a long time, then picked it up. Tessa waited. Gabriel set it on his desk, face forward. No speech. That was enough. The following morning Tessa entered. There were 2 photographs. He had added one of Alessandro and Evelyn himself. She saw it. Gabriel saw her see it. Neither commented. That was their language now. Little changes. Trust. The study became warmer without becoming someone else's space. Deep green walls. Better lighting. A drafting table near the window. Tessa suggested it. Gabriel rejected it. The next day he asked where one could be ordered. Caught again. The drafting table arrived Friday. By Sunday, Gabriel was drawing. Not business plans, not property layouts. Buildings. Tessa found him there after midnight. He looked almost embarrassed. She leaned against the door. Don't stop, Gabriel continued. Tessa sat nearby. No advice, no pressure. Just watched a piece of him return. That was when Gabriel understood something about Tessa. She didn't enter rooms and impose herself. She paid attention to what had been removed, then helped people decide what they wanted back. That was exactly what she was doing to him, and he loved her for it. Then, everything tilted. Tessa's phone began vibrating repeatedly one Tuesday morning. She ignored it at first. Then Adrian arrived looking angry. He showed her an article, not a major publication, a gossip site. The headline was enough. Moretti's designer, or Moretti's distraction. Tessa's stomach dropped. Photographs from the renovations had been leaked. Nothing scandalous. Rooms. Tessa inside the library. Gabriel standing behind her. One image showed his hand at her back during an installation. Another showed them leaving an antique market together. The story implied her Moretti contract had expanded because of a personal relationship. 1 room becoming 6. Professional opportunity becoming romance. Tessa read in silence, then stopped. For a woman who had spent years fighting to have her work taken seriously, the implication cut precisely where it was intended. Gabriel arrived 10 minutes later. Marco had already shown him. His expression was colder than anything Tessa had seen inside the mansion. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Whoever had leaked private photographs had crossed 2 lines. Security. And Tessa. Gabriel wanted answers. Immediately. Marco began tracing the images. Some had come from photographs taken by the design firm for portfolio review. That narrowed the source. Celeste. Maybe directly. Maybe someone beneath her. Gabriel reached for his phone. Tessa stopped him. Don't. He looked at her. I'll handle this. This involves my house. It involves my career. Silence. Gabriel's instinct was protection, crushing the source, ending the threat. Tessa knew. But if Gabriel destroyed Celeste professionally, every whispered accusation would become worse. People would say Tessa needed the Mafia boss to defend work that couldn't stand alone. She couldn't have that. Gabriel's face tightened. Tessa, no. She stepped closer. I need you to trust me enough not to solve this. That landed harder than anger. Gabriel understood. Slowly, reluctantly, he nodded. Tessa went to Celeste alone. She returned 3 hours later. No tears. No dramatic collapse, just furious clarity. Celeste had authorized the leak, not the romance angle. At least, that was her defense. She wanted attention around the Moretti project. Traffic, luxury clients, public fascination. She believed controversy could be managed. Tessa resigned. Immediately. Years of security vanished in one conversation. Salary, office, client list, gone. She left with her portfolio and her name. When she returned to the mansion, Gabriel found her in the library. She was staring at the room she'd designed. What now? Tessa laughed once. Not happily. I panic tomorrow. Gabriel waited. Tonight? I pretend I know what I'm doing. He moved closer. What do you want? Tessa looked at him. Not what do you need me to buy, not what do you want me to fix, just what do you want? My own studio. Gabriel nodded. Then build it. She studied him. No offer of money. No property deed, no army of consultants. He had learned. Tessa's eyes softened. Then something else occurred to her. The Moretti contract, the expanding rooms, the gossip. She couldn't keep taking paid projects from Gabriel while sleeping in his arms. Not anymore. So when Gabriel mentioned the West Gallery, Tessa said no. He stopped. I thought you wanted to review it. I did. And? The lighting is fine. Gabriel said nothing. Tessa stepped closer. If you want to see me, ask me to come over. His gaze sharpened. Don't invent another invoice. That hit. Tessa touched his chest, softly. This needs to become real without me being your employee. Gabriel understood. For the first time, the invented rooms stopped being romantic. They became a shield, a safe reason to keep her near him. And Tessa was asking him to remove it. She kissed him, then packed her sample books. Gabriel watched her leave. Not because she was ending their relationship. She wasn't. But because there would be no project tomorrow. No professional reason for Tessa Morgan to walk through his door. For the first time, Gabriel Moretti would have to ask. The mansion did not become quiet after Tessa stopped working there. That would have been easier. Instead, it remained full of her. The rust-colored cushion, her choice, the drafting table, her idea, the green chair in the library, the photograph of Elena, the breakfast room where Evelyn now sat every morning instead of eating upstairs. Tessa had altered every space she touched, then disappeared professionally from all of them. Gabriel hated it. He discovered her forgotten coffee mug inside a library cabinet on the second day. He picked it up, turned it once in his hand. Marco entered, stopped. Gabriel looked at him. Marco looked at the mug, then reversed direction. He did not need whatever had brought him there. Gabriel put the mug down. Ridiculous. Across town, Tessa rented an office. Calling it an office was generous. It was one rectangular room above a furniture showroom. The walls were chipped. The floor creaked. One radiator made sounds that suggested unresolved trauma. Tessa loved it instantly. The rent was manageable. The street was busy. There was room for one desk, a work table, and sample shelves. Her name would be on the door. Tessa Morgan Interiors. She stared at the temporary paper sign for almost 5 minutes after taping it to the glass. Terrifying. Perfect. The next evening, someone knocked. Tessa opened the door. Gabriel stood outside. Black shirt, dark coat, takeout bag in one hand, toolbox in the other. She looked at the toolbox, then at him. What happened? The shelf. Tessa glanced over her shoulder. One shelf leaned slightly. It came like that. That isn't a defense. She smiled. You crossed half the city because my shelf is crooked? Gabriel entered. I came because I wanted to see you. There. No project. No invoice. No grandmother. No lighting emergency. The truth. Tessa's smile changed. He fixed the shelf anyway, because Gabriel remained Gabriel. They ate on the floor. Tessa showed him her first independent inquiry, a small townhouse. Not glamorous. She was thrilled. Gabriel listened like it mattered, because it did. Their relationship became more intimate once the employment vanished. No reason to maintain artificial distance. Tessa came to the mansion for dinner, not work. Gabriel visited her studio, not inspection. They drove through neighborhoods looking at architecture, because Gabriel finally admitted he enjoyed it. One Sunday, Tessa handed him a sketchbook. New. Blank. He stared. No, it's paper. I already have paper. Business paper. That is not a category. It is now. He took it, complained, used half the pages within 2 weeks. Tessa discovered Gabriel drew when he couldn't sleep. Gabriel discovered Tessa sang badly in cars when she believed music was loud enough to hide her. It wasn't. He never told her. Then one night she caught him humming the same song. Revenge came swiftly. Evelyn watched them grow closer with the smugness of a woman who considered the relationship part of her estate management accomplishments. But Gabriel remained afraid of one thing: permanence. Not commitment itself, the possibility of losing it. Tessa noticed in small ways. After particularly happy evenings, Gabriel became quieter. If Tessa mentioned a future plan months away, something in his face shifted. Not resistance, fear. She understood it after seeing the conservatory drawings. Gabriel had spent years associating love with rooms that became painful afterward. People left. Objects remained. He could control property, not absence. Evelyn understood even more. 3 days after Tessa officially launched her studio, Evelyn invited her for tea. No project, just tea. Halfway through, the old woman casually said, "My grandson is an idiot." Tessa nearly laughed. "That feels like dangerous information." "He knows." Evelyn stirred sugar into her cup, then revealed the truth. The library renovation had been deliberate. So had the breakfast room. She wanted Tessa around. Not necessarily as a romantic target at first. Evelyn simply liked her. The house felt alive. Gabriel came home earlier. She saw no reason to interrupt a successful experiment. Tessa smiled. "I knew it." "You suspected." The upstairs lounge. Evelyn paused. That was Gabriel. Tessa's eyebrows rose. The guest suite? Gabriel. The hallway? Evelyn smiled. Very much Gabriel. Tessa covered her mouth. The West Gallery? Gabriel. Study? Gabriel. Evelyn had stopped inventing work much earlier than Tessa realized. Gabriel had continued alone. "He knew what you were doing?" "By the library." Tessa stared. So Gabriel had known. He hadn't been manipulated, not after the beginning. He had chosen every extra project, every ridiculous defect, every unnecessary room. Evelyn's voice softened. "He kept paying you to stay, because that gave him a reason to expect you tomorrow." The humor faded. Tessa looked toward the window. Evelyn continued. "People think men like Gabriel are afraid of being refused." She shook her head. "He is afraid of being accepted, and then losing it." That was different, and painfully accurate. That evening, Tessa returned to her studio. Gabriel was already there. He had brought dinner again. She leaned against the doorway. Poor visual continuity. Gabriel looked up. "What?" "The hallway." Silence. Tessa folded her arms. There was nothing wrong with it. Gabriel's expression changed. He knew. "Evelyn, your grandmother talks. Constantly." The guest suite. Gabriel looked back at the food. Acceptable. The lounge. Could have been improved. Gabriel. Fine. Tessa laughed. He looked at her. She walked closer. How many? He considered lying, then stopped. All after the breakfast room. Tessa stared. "You invented them." Gabriel's jaw tightened. "Yes." "Why?" He knew the answer, saying it was harder. Tessa waited. Gabriel looked around her small studio. No mansion, no security detail, no excuse. Just them. Because every time you finished a room, you packed. Tessa's expression softened. "I disliked that." "You could have asked me to dinner." "I did not know how." "You run a criminal empire. Unrelated skill set." Tessa laughed unexpectedly. Gabriel's mouth twitched. Then he became serious. Contracts were easier. There it was. A contract meant tomorrow. A scheduled project. A reason. Love meant asking someone to come back because they wanted to. No guarantee. No leverage. Gabriel had spent his life avoiding situations he could not control. Tessa stepped closer. "Do you know what's funny?" "No. I would have come." Gabriel looked at her. "You didn't need the guest suite." "I know that now." Tessa smiled. He reached for her waist, pulled her gently closer. then kissed her. No hidden fear this time. No role between them. Designer, client, gone. Just Gabriel and Tessa. They might have remained there much longer if Gabriel's phone had not vibrated. Marco. He ignored it. It vibrated again. Tessa looked down. That seems persistent. Gabriel sighed, answered. Marco's voice was brief. Something had happened at one of Gabriel's legitimate properties. Not dangerous. A break-in. Files disturbed. Nothing obvious stolen. Gabriel's expression changed instantly. Work returned. Tessa watched him become Moretti again. Controlled, cold, focused. He apologized. She shook her head. Go. Gabriel hesitated. Old fear. Leaving during an important moment. Tessa saw it. She touched his face. Gabriel, go handle your life. I'm not disappearing because you have responsibilities. He searched her expression, then nodded. Left. Tessa stood alone afterward and understood something important. Loving Gabriel would never mean transforming him into a man without obligations. It meant building something strong enough that work, danger, and grief did not automatically become emotional distance. Gabriel returned after midnight. He expected Tessa to be asleep at home. Instead, her studio light was still on. He climbed the stairs. She sat at her desk working. Looked up. You're back. Those words hit him somewhere deep. Back. Not too late. Not abandoned. Back. He crossed the room, kissed her, then stood there with his forehead against hers. Tessa smiled. Bad night? Long. Want to talk? No. Want food? Yes. She handed him half her sandwich. Gabriel ate it. No more conversation required. Days later, Evelyn called both of them to the mansion. She wanted to show Tessa something. Gabriel knew before they reached the west corridor, the conservatory. He stopped. Evelyn looked at him, not pushing, just asking with her eyes. Gabriel had not opened those doors properly in years. Tessa felt the tension. She stepped back. We don't have to. That was why he did. Gabriel removed the key from his pocket, unlocked the doors. Dust moved in the late afternoon light. The conservatory was beautiful even in neglect. Tall windows, old ironwork, empty planters, a faded rug. Books left exactly where Elena had abandoned them. One chair beneath a white sheet, a piano near the far wall. Tessa entered slowly, not touching, not evaluating, just seeing. Gabriel followed. Every step carried memory. His mother's voice, paint on her fingers, summer afternoons, the last winter she was alive. Tessa looked at him, not the room, him. What do you want? The same question he had learned to ask her. Gabriel looked around, then exhaled. I don't know. That can be the answer. He stared at her. For once, uncertainty did not feel like failure. They sat on the floor. No renovation plan, no measurements. Gabriel told her stories. Elena killed almost every plant she claimed was easy to care for. She painted one wall herself when Gabriel was 14 and left a streak near the ceiling nobody could reach. Alessandro hated the piano, but listened when she played. Gabriel used to draw at the table near the window. Tessa listened, then found the old streak of paint. Still there. She smiled. Keep it. Gabriel looked. Yes, that became the beginning. Not of another hired project, of something they would do together. Slowly. Only when Gabriel was ready. The conservatory became the one room Tessa would never invoice him for. Tessa Morgan Interiors began with 2 clients. One wanted a nursery. The other wanted a dining room that did not look, in her words, like my husband selected everything during a tax audit. Tessa liked her immediately. Then came another referral, then another. The Moretti photographs were eventually published properly. Not gossip, design. A respected architectural magazine featured Evelyn's sitting room and library anonymously, focusing entirely on Tessa's work. Celeste's attempted scandal became irrelevant. Tessa's name began circulating for the reason she wanted: talent. Gabriel watched quietly. He did not purchase advertising, did not send clients secretly. Tessa checked, repeatedly. He was offended by the accusation, mostly because Marco had absolutely considered doing it before Gabriel stopped him. Tessa's studio expanded into the room next door. She hired an assistant, then a junior designer. Her name remained on the door. That mattered. Gabriel continued visiting, usually after work, sometimes carrying food, sometimes carrying drawings, once carrying the rust-colored cushion. Tessa stared when he entered. "What happened?" "You're replacing it." "I was testing alternatives." "No," she blinked. "You hate that pillow." Gabriel placed it on her sofa. "I've adjusted." Tessa's mouth slowly curved. Gabriel immediately knew he'd exposed himself. "That pillow has no function." "Correct. You said unnecessary objects bother you." "They do." "Then why did you bring it across Chicago?" Gabriel looked at her. Tessa's smile softened. The cushion had been one of the earliest things she placed inside hid space. Somehow, it had stopped being decoration. It was evidence. She didn't tease him. Much. The conservatory took months. Not because of construction, because Gabriel refused to rush it. They restored Elena's chair, kept the old piano, repaired the iron windows. Tessa added plants. Gabriel objected, not because he disliked them, because Elena had killed so many that plants had become associated with small domestic disasters. Tessa promised to choose survivors. One died within 2 weeks. Gabriel looked at it. Then at Tessa. She blamed the humidity. He blamed her confidence. Evelyn blamed both. A new plant replaced it. The paint streak remained near the ceiling, untouched. Gabriel's old drawings went into frames on one wall. The first time Tessa suggested that, he rejected it. The second time, he ignored her. At the third time, he hung one himself. Progress. They worked there on Sundays. Gabriel sometimes drew while Tessa read. Evelyn occasionally joined them. The room stopped being Elena's abandoned room, without stopping being connected to Elena. That distinction healed something Gabriel had not known was still bleeding. One evening he stood beneath the windows while rain moved across the glass. Tessa entered, carrying 2 mugs, handed him one. He looked around. "I thought changing it would feel like removing her." Tessa leaned beside him. "And? It doesn't. What does it feel like?" Gabriel considered. Like she existed. Not disappeared. Existed. A life could be remembered without freezing the room where it happened. Tessa rested her head against his shoulder. Gabriel kissed her hair. They stayed there until the rain stopped. The Moretti mansion continued transforming. Not because Tessa redesigned everything. She didn't. Some rooms remained formal. Gabriel liked them that way. The difference was USE. Evelyn invited friends. The library became noisy. The breakfast room hosted actual breakfast. Gabriel occasionally worked downstairs, instead of disappearing into his study. Photographs slowly returned. The rust cushion remained. Marco eventually stopped noticing fabric samples, or pretended to. One Friday, Gabriel arrived late for dinner, not intentionally. A business problem had expanded. Old Gabriel would have sent a message through someone else. New Gabriel called Tessa himself. She answered from the conservatory. Evelyn sat nearby, pretending not to listen. "I'll be late." Tessa looked at the clock. "How late?" "An hour." "Fine." Silence. Gabriel seemed to be waiting for something. Tessa understood. "Dinner will still be here." He exhaled. A tiny sound, but she heard it. That was what Gabriel was still learning. Being late did not automatically become being absent. Conflict did not automatically become goodbye. Work did not have to consume every relationship around it. An hour later, he arrived. Tessa had saved his plate. Evelyn criticized the lateness for exactly 30 seconds, then demanded dessert. Life continued. That was the miracle. Not perfection. Continuity. Months after Tessa first arrived, Evelyn hosted a small family dinner inside the renovated sitting room. Marco attended. So did several relatives. Tessa sat beside Gabriel. The conversation eventually turned toward the original renovation. Evelyn became nostalgic. Gabriel became suspicious. Then she admitted the full truth. She had chosen Tessa's portfolio because she liked the warmth. That part was real. Her sitting room genuinely needed change. The library, less urgently. The breakfast room, hardly at all. Tessa laughed. Gabriel stared at his grandmother. You manipulated the situation. Evelyn looked offended. I created opportunity. You invented problems. I identified underutilized rooms. Marco looked down at his glass. Tessa was laughing too hard to defend anyone. Gabriel turned toward her. You're encouraging her. She doesn't need encouragement. Evelyn continued. By the time Gabriel invented the upstairs lounge, she knew her job was finished. From there, her grandson handled his own romantic collapse very efficiently. Tessa leaned into Gabriel. He looked at Evelyn. How much of this do you claim responsibility for? Initially, 30%, 10, 40, 20, 50. Gabriel realized negotiation was making things worse. He stopped. Evelyn smiled triumphantly. The room filled with laughter. Gabriel looked around. Years earlier, noise had annoyed him. Now he understood what silence had cost. Later that night, the guests left. Evelyn went upstairs. Tessa and Gabriel walked through the mansion together. Rooms they'd changed, rooms they had not. The library, breakfast room, lounge, study. Finally, the conservatory. Tessa turned on the lights. Finished, completely. Plants along the windows. Elena's chair restored. Gabriel's drawings framed. New books beside old ones. Warm light across the piano. Nothing else needed changing. Tessa stood in the center, folded her arms. That is officially it. Gabriel looked around. What? You've run out of rooms. He considered. Tessa immediately narrowed her eyes. No, I haven't said anything. You looked at the ceiling. There may be potential. Gabriel. He smiled. Not almost. Fully. That still did something to her. Tessa walked closer. No more projects. Gabriel nodded. Agreed. No suspicious hallways. Fine. No emergency lighting. Reasonable. No perfectly healthy guest bedrooms developing sudden emotional problems. Gabriel's mouth twitched. Understood. Tessa relaxed. Then Gabriel reached into his pocket. She stopped. What is that? A key. He held it out. Tessa looked down. Small. Brass. Not the conservatory. She looked back at him. Gabriel was suddenly more serious than he had been all evening. There is one room left. Her eyes narrowed. I knew it. It doesn't need renovating. That changed things. Gabriel took her hand, placed the key in her palm. My bedroom. Tessa stared. He continued before she could make the obvious joke. For years, every room in this house belonged to me, in some technical sense. His voice lowered. But none of them felt like somewhere I expected another person to stay. Tessa's chest tightened. Gabriel glanced toward the room around them. You changed that. She closed her fingers around the key. He was not asking her to become another possession inside the Moretti mansion. Not telling her to abandon her studio. Not deciding her life. Just opening another door. Asking, move in with me. Tessa looked up. Gabriel's expression held something she had rarely seen on the face of a man half the city feared. Nerves. Actual nerves. She let him suffer for perhaps 3 seconds. Only 3, then smiled. Yes. The tension left his face. Gabriel pulled her toward him. Tessa laughed softly as his arms circled her waist. He kissed her, slowly at first. Then with the confidence of a man who had spent months learning that wanting someone did not automatically mean losing them. When they separated, Tessa rested both hands against his chest. One condition. Gabriel became cautious. The bedroom curtains. No, they're terrible. No, Gabriel, you have renovated enough. Those curtains are a crime. I've committed worse. Tessa stared, then burst out laughing. His arms tightened around her. From the hallway came Evelyn's voice. Leave the antique wardrobe alone. Tessa froze. Gabriel slowly turned his head. His grandmother was somewhere outside the conservatory, listening. "Of course," Tessa called back. "I wasn't planning to touch it." "Good." Evelyn's footsteps moved away. Gabriel closed his eyes. Tessa pressed her face against his chest and laughed. There would be no privacy in this family. Apparently that too was part of home. Moving in did not happen overnight. Tessa kept her studio, kept her apartment for another month, moved gradually. Books first. Clothes. Then an alarming number of design samples Gabriel insisted did not belong in their bedroom. Tessa disagreed. They negotiated. The samples moved into a spare study. Not because Gabriel invented a project, because Tessa genuinely needed storage. That became an important distinction. One evening, Marco arrived for a meeting and passed an open room where Gabriel was assembling shelving. He stopped. Gabriel looked up. Marco looked at the shelves, then at the instruction sheet. "Do you need help?" "No." Marco nodded, continued walking. 10 minutes later, a loud metallic sound came from the room. Marco kept walking. Loyalty had limits. The Moretti mansion no longer looked untouchable. Tessa's shoes appeared beneath chairs. Sketchbooks remained open. Gabriel's drawings spread across the drafting table. Evelyn left reading glasses in 3 different rooms and accused everyone else of moving them. Fresh flowers appeared because Tessa liked them. The staff no longer rushed to remove every cup the moment someone put it down. People lived there. And Gabriel changed in ways far less obvious than paint. He still ran the Moretti organization, still entered rooms and made conversations stop, still handled enemies with the same controlled authority, still wore black often enough that Tessa accused him of having personally declared war on color. He did not become a different man. He became a fuller one, a man who could leave a meeting because dinner mattered. A man who could sketch buildings after midnight simply because he wanted to. A man who stopped treating love as something that needed contractual justification. Tessa changed too. Her studio grew. Her confidence stopped needing permission. She wore her ideas exactly as they were. Warm, bold, personal. She stopped asking whether wealthy clients would consider something too much. If they wanted safe beige rooms, there were other designers. Her work became recognizable. People began requesting Tessa Morgan specifically. Gabriel loved watching it happen. Not because he had built it, because he hadn't. She had. 1 year after Evelyn's sitting room was renovated, Tessa received an award from a regional design association. Nothing enormous, but hers. At the reception, someone asked Gabriel what it was like living with an interior designer. He looked toward Tessa across the room. She was laughing with Evelyn. Curvy figure wrapped in a deep green dress. Confident. Beautiful. His. Not as possession, as choice. Gabriel considered the question. Expensive. Tessa heard him. Turned. Her eyes narrowed. The room laughed. Later she informed him his office was due for another renovation as punishment. Gabriel refused. She threatened the curtains. He surrendered immediately. Some battles were unwinnable. Months passed. The conservatory became their favorite room. Sunday mornings there. Coffee. Evelyn nearby. Sometimes Marco. Sometimes nobody. One morning, Tessa sat beside Gabriel, reviewing photographs from a new project. He was sketching. She looked around. "Remember when you kept pretending rooms were broken?" Gabriel did not look up. "I never said broken. Poor visual continuity." It was a valid concern. The hallway was fine. He continued drawing. The lighting lacked warmth. Tessa stared at him, then smiled. He was never going to admit all of it. He didn't need to. She knew. Evelyn entered carrying tea. "Which hallway?" Gabriel looked up. "No." Evelyn sat. "The west one?" "No." "Oh, that was one of the ridiculous ones." Tessa laughed. Gabriel closed his sketchbook. He was outnumbered, again. For perhaps the 1,000th time since Tessa entered his life, he didn't mind. That evening, as sunlight faded behind the conservatory windows, Tessa walked through the mansion alone for a moment. Evelyn's sitting room, the first room. She stopped in the doorway. The restored green chair still sat near the window. Photographs covered the wall. A book lay open beside Evelyn's tea. Nothing staged, nothing perfect. Home. Gabriel approached behind Tessa. His hand settled around her waist, the same place he'd held her on the ladder months earlier. She leaned back against him. "You know," Gabriel waited. "This entire thing happened because your grandmother hated beige. That is not the lesson." "It might be." He kissed her temple. Tessa smiled, then looked toward the hallway. "No more rooms?" Gabriel was quiet. Too quiet. She turned. His expression had changed. "What?" He looked toward one closed door. Tessa immediately pointed at him. "No." Gabriel's mouth curved. "I was going to suggest dinner." "Oh." A beat. "That room is still ugly, though." Gabriel laughed. Real laughter. "Easy now." The sound traveled through the house. Evelyn heard it from the library, smiled to herself, and kept reading. Because she remembered the man Gabriel had been before Tessa Morgan walked through the door. A man surrounded by rooms he owned, and almost nothing that felt like home. Tessa had been hired to renovate one sitting room for his grandmother. That was all. One room, one contract, one designer. Then Gabriel kept finding more. A library, a breakfast room, a lounge, a guest suite, a hallway, with absolutely nothing wrong with it. At first, he called it renovation, then convenience, then design. Anything except the truth. Because every room Tessa finished brought him closer to the moment she'd pack her samples and leave. And Gabriel Moretti had spent too much of his life watching people disappear from rooms he could not stop remembering. So he tried to buy time in square footage, one room at a time, until Tessa taught him that people were not furniture. You couldn't keep them by creating a place for them. You kept them by giving them a reason to choose you, by opening the door, by asking, by accepting that love came without guarantees. And somehow, the most powerful lesson Gabriel Moretti ever learned arrived carrying fabric samples, arguing about decorative pillows, standing on a ladder she absolutely did not need help getting down from. Tessa Morgan had changed his walls, his routines, his grandmother's life, his forgotten dream. But more than any of that, she had changed what Gabriel believed a home was supposed to feel like. Not silent, not untouched, not protected from memory. A home was allowed to change, allowed to become messy, allowed to fill with laughter, allowed to carry evidence that someone had been there. Because sometimes the possibility of missing someone was simply the price of having them matter. And Gabriel no longer wanted a mansion that could never hurt him. He wanted books. This one, with Evelyn's books everywhere, with Tessa's samples invading rooms, with one completely unnecessary rust-colored cushion on his sofa, with photographs, with music, with unfinished sketches, with arguments about curtains, with Tessa. There were no more rooms left to invent, no more contracts needed, no more excuses, because the woman Gabriel Moretti once kept hiring to fix his house had finally become the person he wanted beside him when absolutely nothing needed fixing at all. And that was the one change Gabriel never wanted reversed. If Gabriel and Tessa's story kept you watching until the very end, show some love by hitting that like button and subscribing for more unforgettable mafia romance stories filled with danger, suspense, unexpected humor, and powerful love. Also, drop your country or city below. See you in the next one.